Craig the Marketing Apprentice here. Are you looking for a fresh perspective on running a business? Are you starting your own, or yours is just going through a rocky patch? Well, Lee, the MD for VaporClean, brings you the Herding Cats podcast to give you not just his own experiences, but experiences of his team and clients he's worked with. Today though, Lee and Ashley talk about their worst experiences of being a manager.
That cleaner has got a job no more.
Yeah.
That hurts.
She's moved to Spain. She's got the key to the garage and the key to the safe. I didn't want to tell you this last week because this is what the situation was, blah, blah, blah.
And then I passed him in the street.
Yeah.
And I waved and they waved back.
I waved back.
And Lee starts to get violent.
If you don't get someone here, someone's going to get hurt. And frankly, it ain't going to be me.
All that and more on today's episode of the Herding Cats podcast.
The brutal truth about what being a manager is really like. I think many people, when they step into management roles, don't know exactly what it can be like to be that person in responsibility. Hi, I'm Lee, Managing Director at VaporClean Cleaning Services, and this is Ashley, our Contracts Manager, and we're here today on episode 3 of the Leadership Herding Cats podcast to speak about the actual brutal truth of what it's like to be a manager. So, being a manager, it's not exactly pretty. There are good moments, but honestly, I think there are more bad than good at times, especially. We both said, Ashley, didn't we, when we first talked about this particular episode, that that's going to be a long one?
Yeah.
Because I think it's definitely, if nothing else, it's easy to list the negatives compared to the positives of being a manager. And obviously we're not going to be trying to put people off today, but being a manager is tough, isn't it?
It is tough. And
you, despite what many people will think, you invest a lot emotionally, don't you?
Yeah.
And when you're working day to day and you've got those goals that you've got to set, you've got things you've got to do, you're still considering the people that you're responsible for.
Yeah, got to at all times.
Yeah. So starting from the top, what's your worst ever experience of being a manager?
There's a few. One of them is, I don't know whether you get it, but when we used to lose sites.
Yeah.
And that cleaner has got a job no more.
Yeah.
That hurts because you feel you've let them down.
Yeah.
But it's totally out of your hands. There's nothing you can do, and they're looking for more work. They're good.
Yeah. You've
got nothing, and that hurts when you've got to let them go that out.
Yeah, that is tough, and as you know, just because of a financial decision,
exactly.
We've lost one recently. One of our bigger sites has been bought by a larger American company, and they are merging multiple sites in different areas.
Yeah.
And so obviously we lost that, and we lost 3 good people.
Very good people, yeah.
3 very good people, and yeah, it's tough, and I think just having that conversation when you've got to go and break that news.
I hate doing it.
I was going to say, how does that make you feel?
I don't like doing it. I try every way to go around it, but you can't. You just got to say it.
Yeah, it's because there's that fine line between knowing that that's going to really hurt you and not wanting to do it, but also knowing you have to let them know.
Yeah,
you've got to pull that plaster off as such and make it as clear as day to them. And then I suppose that triggers 2P as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's probably a whole other subject.
A whole other subject, yeah.
But you've got that reassurance to go through.
Yeah. And some don't want to go.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
So is there one particular situation that sort of stands out when you've had to do that? Or is it sort of every time you've had to do it?
It's not every time, but there's been a couple of sites. I used to look after the Coastal in Bristol.
Right.
And because they're separate to the council, they wanted it cheaper, because obviously the council's not cheap because they pay everything, and they took another company on, so the cleaners got 2P'd over and they didn't want to go, and I had nothing to give them, and I lost 8 really good cleaners. And that was hard because they helped me in other places. If I needed some hands-on training, I could pull that cleaner, put them in there, they would do that for me, and I'd know it'd be done right. So I lost a lot from losing that site. It's not just the fact you lose the cleaners, you lose your experienced cleaners, your helpers, everything.
Because you develop people on as well,
Yeah.
don't you? And that's, again, the truth of being a manager is you invest a lot in those people emotionally, but you invest a lot of time, energy, and everything else. And then if you lose them for whatever reason, that can hurt as well, can't it?
That can hurt.
And if I had to sort of sum up the majority of my bad experiences in one word, I think it would actually be used. As I said a minute ago, you invest a lot emotionally, don't you? And I think for me, that's probably the most painful thing. Is if it's a bad experience, it's almost like they've used you.
Yeah.
I think that's where most of mine come from. I mean, I completely agree with you, and I get that perspective. And I wonder whether or not, I'll give you a couple of examples of my really bad experiences, and we'll see if they're on par with yours. But it's also different. It's interesting to see the difference, because I'm a business owner manager, and I've probably had, people have that sort of clearer perspective of knowing that I'm the final say as such of one. It's a bad way to put it, but the final say. Whereas you're a manager within a business. Yeah. So I don't know, and I'm probably relating more back to the council than here. But if you have had to let someone go, do you find that their frustration is directed at you or directed above you?
Some of that could depend on how long they've worked for you.
Yeah.
I think, because then they get to know you, really.
Yeah.
But no, they do sort of say, well, why?
Yeah.
Because they don't want us anymore. Well, what have I done wrong? And they take it personally, and that can hurt as well.
Yeah.
So, no, I haven't had anyone actually sort of say, it's your fault, as yet. But no, it's a difficult one, that is.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, my very worst experience being a manager, some years ago now, I think it was actually the first year that my dad stepped away. So it was one of the first technicians that I took on after he left. And basically, so I took this guy on. He'd been with us about 6 months, and he was supposed to come in for a van check. As you know, all the mobile technicians, they have to come in for a van check once a week. We go through their vans, etc., and we make sure everything's there, everything's been looked after. And he came in one day and hadn't had his van check. There was no carpet machine in his van. And when we asked him, like, where's your carpet machine? I had to take it out of the van. It was winter, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I had to take it out of the van. I put it in the garage, and I covered it up. Right, okay, fine. Make sure you bring it in for your next van check. And then he went off sick for a week, and the reason for going off sick was he actually told me that his wife had cancer.
Right.
Which obviously, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
You believe it, you go with it, you give him all the sympathy in the world, and you go with that. He returned to work the week after, carried on as he was, but he kept missing van checks, kept missing coming to the office, really skipping around, became a little bit more elusive on the phone. And back in that days, we were taking cash as well. And we'd added up how much cash that he should have with him. And I called him one day and I said, you're supposed to have over £1,000 cash. Where is it? Oh, it's all right, don't worry, I've taken it out and I've put it in my safe. Right, okay, so you need to come to the office tomorrow. Let's bring the cash, bring the carpet machine, we'll run through everything. Anyway, he turns up to the office the next day. My wife's in hospital. She's having cancer treatment. She's got the key to the safe. Alarm bells start ringing.
Yeah, I would have said.
Gone down to the van, no carpet machine. Where's the carpet machine? Oh, I didn't need it today, so I've left it in the garage. I told you to bring it. Anyway, this goes on for another couple of days. Then the next one was, I basically was out in the area myself anyway. I turned up to site and checked his van for the carpet machine. No carpet machine. I said, where's your carpet machine? Oh, it's in the garage, but it's locked in the garage and I can't get in the garage because actually my wife has left me. She's moved to Spain. She's got the key to the garage and the key to the safe. I didn't want to tell you this last week because this is what the situation was, blah, blah, blah. And obviously by this point I'm thinking, oh my good Lord, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So spoke to him, said, look, you need to get this sorted. 48 hours basically. You've got a meeting in the office. He didn't need his carpet machine. I said, but you've got a meeting in the office in 48 hours. You need to come to the office with the carpet machine, and with all your cash.
Yeah.
That has to be what it is. He rocks up to the office a couple of days later, sits down in the office and admits he's pawned the carpet machine and he's spent all the cash.
Oh my God.
And basically his wife hadn't left him. She never had cancer.
Oh, that's terrible.
Nothing. He just did it there and then. That was just, and I to be honest, I was in complete and utter disbelief, and I just literally, I didn't know what to say, what to do, and I stood up. Obviously, as you know, we're first floor office, one door in and out. So I stood up, walked outside, stood on the steps outside, pulled my phone out of the pocket and just rung 999.
I would have done the same.
I need the police.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it annoyed me because they actually said, and at this point he starts ranting and raving and getting really threatening and everything else. Just, what are you doing? I said, well, you're not leaving. I said, I'm calling the police. I effing well am, this, that and the other, I'm going, you can have your job, you can have this. I said, no, you're not. So I've got the police on the phone, and I sort of said to him, I said, look, you need to get down here. This is what's happened. And originally they said it was going to be about 5 or 6 hours before they get anyone in there. I said, this guy's kicking off.
Yeah.
And again, as you know, I'm not scared, and I'm not frightened of coming forward. So he starts going and shouting and everything else. And in the end, I said to him, "Look, someone's going to get hurt in the Mare if you don't get someone here."
Yeah.
And this was back in the day that it was mainly me running the office. So we had someone in part time, so it was just me and him in an office at 8 o'clock in the morning. Before we dive too deep into this week's podcast, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors, which is Vapor Clean Commercial Cleaning Services. Vapor Clean provides commercial contract cleaning throughout the southwest. If you run a business with premises that need cleaning on a daily basis, then we can provide that service for you regularly, sufficiently and consistently to the highest standard. We provide trained professional operatives that are audited and supported the right way, making sure you have the highest standards all year round. So if you want to know more, get in touch. But for now, back to the podcast. If you don't get someone here, someone's going to get hurt. And frankly, it ain't going to be me. So 10 minutes later, sirens come in and they fly in and they literally arrest him there and then. They took him down the police station and they prosecuted him, and he was done. I had to go to court because he denied it all.
Really?
Yeah, he denied everything. I will say I'm not stupid. I recorded the whole conversation and I told him I was recording the conversation and everything. So it was a case of that's what it was. And I was just like, unbelievable. We did manage, or the police managed to get the carpet machine back, everything all done. So he told them what shop he pawned it at, so they went back there. So he'd done the pawn shop as well because they lost their money that they paid for it. And then we obviously lost the cash because the cash was gone. And we also found out that basically he had been doing sideline jobs with all of our kit and everything else and this, that and the other.
Oh,
so like technicians say to us now, why do we need trackers on our vans? I wonder.
Yeah.
So hands down, that is like,
that's bad.
The worst experience I've ever had.
I've never had that, thank
being a
God.
manager. No. But I suppose with that, I've always tried to make sure that those types of experiences, and it's not, that's the worst, don't get me wrong, but it's not an isolated experience, and that's why I say used, because quite often that would sum it up for me. But how do you prevent these negative experiences change who you are and the decisions you make? That's
a hard one. That is a hard one. I don't know, really. I've never experienced anything that bad, for sure. I don't know.
Do you find that though, when you have a bad experience with a person, or now when you, because as you say, 15 years in the industry, being a manager, when you go and interview someone now, or even if someone rings in sick, do you find that nagging doubt in the back of your mind?
I find the nagging doubt in my mind, especially if it's somebody that there's a rolling problem coming. But if it's somebody that I generally do think No, they wouldn't be like that, because you've got to get to know your cleaners. And I just think, no, if they're saying they're sick, they're sick. But there is, yeah, no, I've experienced a lot of that.
Yeah.
Saying they're sick, and then I passed them in the street.
Yeah.
And I waved, and they waved back.
They wave back. I've never had one wave back.
And
I'll be honest.
they're out sick because they hurt their leg, but they're walking around the road.
Yeah.
No, I've been there.
Yeah.
It is.
But you have to try, because I've always, and I have, and I think as a smaller business, I think people do feel that they can. I sometimes feel that people feel like they can take advantage a little bit more.
They do. If they see that, they'll try and take that.
Yeah.
Everybody will.
Yeah, and like I say, that situation was very, very clear. He thought he could take very obvious advantage there, and there's a few stories I could tell you that are similar as well.
Blimey.
Like one Christmas we had, again, this was not long after, actually, it was a similar time. We had one of the technicians, which is one of the reasons we don't carry cash anymore.
Right.
I know we're a bit more of a cashless society, but back then we carried cash, and everyone came into the office day before Christmas Eve because they have Christmas off, etc., etc. And one particular technician, Gloucester based, basically went sick that day. He'd done his work and then rang to say that his wife had a fall and he had to go off, and etc., etc. So he missed that visit, which meant he had cash in the van. Lo and behold, over Christmas, in between Christmas and New Year, he got robbed.
I knew that
van got broken into. And the shock on his face when I said to him, well, where's the police report?
Well, yeah.
And he said, well, I didn't report it to the police. Why didn't you report it to the police? Well, why would I? Said, why wouldn't you? And then this was in the new year, his first day back. I got him into the office and I'm looking around the van. I said, well, how did they get in your van? There's no damage to it. So, for one policy is you're supposed to take the cash inside if you've got cash with you, so it's not left in the van overnight. Two, if so you shouldn't have done that. But two, you left it in the van. So how did they get in the van if it's not damaged? The locks are working.
Yeah.
You're testing the central lock and all the rest of it, and the locks are working. It's just, again, they think they can take advantage. And in one sense, you feel like there must be a real need there. He could be in a desperate situation.
Yeah. And
I've lent technicians money before. I've lent staff money because they've been in desperate situations. I don't do it anymore.
No.
Because I've been burnt so much. But that's a prime example. How do you stop it changing yourself?
I think once you've been bit, you won't do it again, and you just can't stop yourself. I think that's just part of it.
Yeah.
Because you want to help.
Yeah.
And that's just natural. But I think if you help and they bite you, they'll know never to ask you again.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what I find now. Is I find myself thinking, don't tar everyone with the same brush.
Yeah.
Just because that other person did that doesn't mean that this person is going to do it.
It is hard not to do it like that. Because you do, but you've got to try and think, no, that's a separate situation.
Yeah. As a manager, or especially for myself as a business owner, obviously you've got to make some really hard decisions, haven't you? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's to protect other members of the team.
Yeah.
So when you have to make those decisions, how does that sort of sit with you? How do you justify that to yourself as much as to anyone else?
I think you just got to accept it and say it's got to be done.
Yeah.
And try and do it the best way you can to make it not so forceful.
Have you been in many of those circumstances where you feel, if I don't do this, whatever that decision might be, if I don't do this is actually going to impact so many other people?
Yeah, I've had them. I don't like them, but no, I've had them. And I think with me, it was more the way I would say it.
Yeah.
I think if you can come across not to, well, I'm the boss, this is how you're going to do it, sort of thing. Because my motto is, if I won't do it, I won't expect you to do it.
Yeah, I won't ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do myself.
I can do it, yeah. And that's what I try and put over there. If I ask you to do something, I'm not saying because I want you to do it. It's something you can do because I can do it.
Yeah.
And I'll help them. But no, I don't really like confrontation to that degree.
No, and I think as a manager anyway, you should always try and avoid confrontation. It needs to be constructive. It's not a confrontation sort of circumstance, any of it.
No, but that's how they read it. And that's the worst bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples of some of my stories. I'll give you one more, and then I'm going to ask you for another one.
Oh my God, I haven't got him as bad as you.
Well, I had one here, and I think you said yourself as well, but I had one here one time where we had a young lady that was working for us, working on one of the sites. She'd been working with us for sort of 2 or 3 weeks, and basically just didn't turn up one day. We went through the usual process, try and get hold of her emergency contact, etc, etc. Took us all day to get hold of her. In the end, it was her emergency contact that we got hold of, who was rather rude and swearing down the phone, that she doesn't want to effort work for you anymore, this, that and the other. And we were like, all right, okay, whatever, fine. Don't know what the situation was there. She was also working alongside someone else, so we kind of investigated that to make sure anything had happened. Couldn't figure out what it was, so we sort of left it from there. And obviously we have a policy: if you don't work your notice period, you lose your 2 weeks in lieu. And that was probably back in the days when we very first started this, because we'd been burned a few times.
Yeah.
Well, she lost 2 weeks in pay. Well, on payday, her dad was knocking at the door. And I remember we had this, we had the lady working in the customer service. It was in this office, so we'd been in here. But they came in, or he came in, sort of banging at the door and shouting and swearing she wants her effing money and this, that and the other. And again, it's kind of like, what always goes through my mind is, well, would you do that at Tesco's?
No.
And I suppose it's like you, isn't it? Yeah. Bristol City. I can't imagine you ever got any of that sort of situation.
If we did, it was just passed to along to somebody else. We were never put right in the fire, but we could be if they knew you worked for the council. You get, you work for the council, do you?
Yeah.
So why is my council tax so high? Well, I don't work for that part of the council. But they would, anything to do with the council, you'd get shouted at in the street if they knew. That's why we weren't allowed to wear IDs when we were outside. But when you're walking out of a council building with paperwork, it's a bit
obvious.
Yeah.
So. What other sort of bad experience would you say you've had as a manager?
Well, mine's be a little bit different because obviously with the councils there's so many regulations and rules and things. It is different. Any sort of confrontation like that, we just had to let the police, and they were there straight away because you're a council worker. So it was different. The only scenarios that I got is what used to frustrate me with the council. You can take all your holiday in one go, even if you've only been there 3 days. You can take 4 weeks.
Really?
And we used to say that has to stop, because what's happening is they're starting, then they're going to Somalia, taking their 4 weeks, then they're allowed to have unpaid leave, which means their job is still staying open. This spread around, and it was horrendous. That is and there is nothing you can do, nothing, because that's part of the council.
That's part of their
It's all part
policy.
of it. Yeah,
that's crazy, isn't it? And I suppose that's one of the things that kind of made your role.
It was getting harder.
Impossible, really.
Because you can't tell them off. You can't say no. You've got to come back now, because you're not allowed.
They're doing whatever's allowed in there.
Yeah, and of course when we went over to the new company, they wanted all that changed. I tried telling them, well, it's happened to me. I've done it before. I'm still a Bristol City Council employee. They can't touch me. It was mayhem, absolute mayhem. So not really confrontational, but in that way it can make you.
Yeah.
That's the worst I've ever had. Well, one other, but not working in that sort of way. Being a manager is.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's two different ends of the spectrum as well.
Yeah. And I believe your sister now works for Vapor Clean as well, doesn't she?
Yes.
What's that like now? Because she started before you stepped up into management.
She started before I stepped up, but the mother mobile support deals with her.
Right. So you put that clear.
That is clear.
Separation in.
Anything she wants, any problems, it goes through to them.
Yeah.
They can't deal with it, then I'll help them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting that. Where I'm in family.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. My son used to work for me when I was with Churchill, and I sacked him because he was always late. So I'll never experience. He's a good cleaner.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. Friends, no, I don't want to know, because if they're crap, it falls back on me.
Yeah, and as you know, Vapor Clean's a family business.
Yeah.
There's not as many family members in it now as it was back in the day. But I mean, my sister was a technician for 5 years. So it was when me and my dad were still out on the road very much as well. And then obviously when he retired, that was when I made the decision. We're going to do this properly. We're going to push this forward.
Yeah.
And to do that, I need to step away. I need to come off the road more. But managing a family member it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's a whole other level.
Yeah.
It's a whole other level.
Because they don't say nothing when they see you, they'll have a go at you.
Yeah.
But I haven't had that problem yet.
No.
And she used to work for the council as well, so...
She did?
Yeah.
Not for you, though?
No.
No.
for the other lady.
Yeah.
So, but she used to be a manager as well with the cleaning in the council, so it's pretty straightforward. What happens in work happens in work. That's how you got to keep it.
Yeah, because we used to try and separate it as much as possible, but to be honest, I think it got to a point where every time we were seeing each other, we were talking work.
Yeah.
To a degree, and actually, for the first few years that my dad stepped away from the business, the only discussion we had about it was, how's it going? Yeah, it's fine. That was it. We didn't go into too much detail. Whereas with my sister, things ended on bad terms. Because again, and you'll know this situation. We had a deep clean to do in a school kitchen.
Right.
We went and done the deep clean. There was 4 of them on it in the morning, and then they had a clean after that. Within an hour of them leaving, I'd received a complaint, and it was a bad and justifiable complaint.
Yeah.
So I jumped straight in the van, went round there, had a look at it, spoke to the client, etc. And it was the last day they could have it cleaned before they opened. So it was a case if we didn't get it done, they weren't going to pay, etc. So it had to be sorted. So I went from there back around to where they were all working. Basically had a chat with them, but as we said before, confrontation is easier with family, isn't it? It sort of goes into that very quickly when it's family, and that's what happened. We ended up basically having an argument rather than a discussion what was going to happen. And the 3 people that were team members, not family members, they ended up finishing the job they were on and going back round and finishing that one up and getting it all done, having a late night. Whereas my sister stormed off, and that was it. It was the last day she worked for Vapor Clean. And that put a big separation between me and her for quite a period of time, because there was just friction there all the time.
There will be.
I'd say we're probably not the same now that we were back then, and I don't get me wrong, I have a massive respect for my sister. I believe she does for me. I don't know really, but
too scared to ask.
I am. Yeah. And it was definitely the right step for her. She's now working with the ambulance service and everything else, in which she was already doing, and we knew she was gearing up to move on to her next stage anyway. But and that's probably one of my situations where I sit back and I think, did I handle that in the best way? Because you do that, don't you?
Yeah.
You deal with a situation, and then sometimes you sit back and you think,
I could have done that better.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
I could have done that better.
Yeah.
And that day, I'll be honest, I'm still 50-50. I'm still 50-50 to this day, because number one, I could have done it differently,
right?
But would that have shown her special treatment?
Maybe not her, but maybe the others.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's his sister, that's why.
That's what I mean.
And that causes massive problems.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And we were building a technician team at that point that was essentially meant to run without her, because we didn't know, within 6 months she was leaving.
Yeah.
So I think you do that as a manager, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Family's not the best to have working for you.
It's tough. It is certainly tough. Do you think there's a way that you can protect yourself from bad experiences as a manager? So again, there's the ones that you've described, and maybe some.
I think if you've had some bad experiences, you'll know next time round. But I don't think you would ever keep away from it. I think there's always one that will come round.
Yeah.
Every now and again, and you'll think, oh, I don't want that again. Thank you. So I learned from that one, and that's all you can keep doing. Is just keep learning from them.
It's constant learning.
It's constant.
You'll
never stop.
Learning.
Never.
Yeah, I think, and you can put things in place to prevent a situation from happening again. You know, and I know the team here, the customer service, they get annoyed by me saying, no, that van check has to be done. Why haven't they come in with their van today? Obviously comes back from the story I was telling earlier.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think you can ever protect yourself completely from bad experiences. You can just try and prevent situations from reoccurring.
And that's all you can do. Just put something there to try and stop it, but doesn't mean to say it will stop it.
So do you think, with that in mind then, you think it's just part of being a manager and you've got to learn to deal with it?
I think you've got to learn to deal with it. The same as like the way people react sometimes, like when they phone up and they're upset and they don't want to go to work, and you've got to put the softy side on, but at the same time you want them to go to work. So I don't think you just got to learn from it. And I think once you've done it enough times, you get used to it.
So to kind of wrap up at the end, obviously try and give a bit of benefit to the listeners and to the viewers. Would you advise someone to become a manager?
I wouldn't advise anybody to become a manager. I think being a manager, you've got to have it there to want to do it, because it's not a job you can just, anyone can do that, because it's not. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of control you've got to do to be able to say, I can manage all this and keep everything in place. And not everybody can do it, I feel. I think if you can do it, then do it. But if you're like that, I'd be very cautious, because it can pull you down very quick. And that's the bad side of it.
Yeah, and I think, as I was kind of getting towards earlier on, I think it can almost change your personality, can't it? And it can change you as a person if you let it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the difficult part, and that's where the decision comes in as well. Well, should I come out of whatever role it is to try and step that up? And I think a lot of people look at that ladder within a career of what they want to climb that ladder, but they
don't know what's involved in that ladder.
Exactly.
That's the difference. It's all right saying, I could do that.
Yeah.
Because that's all she does all day. And then you sit there and think, oh my God, I didn't know they did this.
Yeah.
No, it is an eye-opener.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ashley. And that definitely is the brutal truth about being a manager. You can see there that there are lots of similarities, whether you're working within a business or you are a business owner. So thank you very much for listening, watching, whichever way you're listening to this podcast right now. Again, if you can, please, before you go, wherever you listen or watch the podcast, if you can, like us, leave a review or a rating. Please do subscribe. We are putting a podcast out every week around this sort of situation, all around leadership and management. And if there's anything in particular you want to get us talking about, then leave us a comment, ask us a question, whatever it might be. And we will see you again next week. Thank you very much.